सूर्य श्री गणेश भगवान की जय। उमापति महादेव की जय। वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। आज शक्ति दुर्गा मैया की जय। श्री पुत्र हनुमान की जय। सबको जय सीताराम everyone. This morning we join with you once more in satsang as we congregate with you in a virtual setting where you are together with your family members in the safety and in the comfort of your homes, in your puja rooms. Some of you may be at your places of work, and we are joining with you here from the beautiful environment and wonderful vibrations in the Krishna Mandir of 43rd Street, San Fernando. As we join together this morning in San Fernando, it is a bit rainy. In your precincts it may be likewise, or maybe you're experiencing very pleasant weather. Whatever it may be and whatever be our circumstance, we come together this morning once more with this wonderful opportunity to glorify everyone, to sing His praises and His glories, and indeed to uplift ourselves through ourselves. This morning we invite you to join with us for the next hour as we engage in mantras, as we engage in sandhya, as we engage in the singing of Chalisa and brief pravachan. And hopefully through this medium we can find that solace, that comfort that we all seek. Today being the most wonderful, most powerful day of Vijayadashami, or Vishira. We join together now in invocation. We join our palms together, going within, and we invoke the presence of the One. Hari Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Meva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Jayanti Mangalakali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsajanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatguru Nagindraharaya Trilochanaya Bhasmangaraya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shubhaya Digambaraya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandra Navirase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaye Pataye Namaha. Om Manojaram Margatulyavedyam Jetindriyam Buddhimadam Varishtam Vadatmajam Varayutamukam Shri Ramadunam Shirasi Namami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Let us all now join together as we glorify everyone through the medium of Kirtan.
Shiva
बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय. We appreciate Ganesh Bhagwan at the start of any undertaking, praying to him for success, praying to him for the removal of all obstacles. And this morning we do likewise, asking for our minds to be influenced in a positive way, for all difficulties and obstacles to be removed from our pathway as we appreciate the blessings of Ganesh Bhagwan. Praise Bole Shri Ganesh Bhagwan ki Jai. We now join together in glorification of Mahavir Swami. Hanuman Ji, on this occasion of Vijayadashmi, in Ramcharitmanas we recognize Hanuman Ji to be one of the principal characters who provides to us that hope, that inspiration, that we can, once we have Bhagwan in front of us, overcome all obstacles and all difficulties. As we sing his Chalisa this morning, let us recall the glories of Mahavir Swami as contained in Ramcharitmanas. Let us indeed recall the glories of Mahavir Swami as we sing his praises and sing his glories.
Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj Nij Man Mukur Sudhar Barno Raghubar Vimal Jasu Jo Dayak Pal Jar Buddhihin Tanu Janiki Sumiro Pavan Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi Anhu Kalesh Vitar Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar Jai Kabir Siddhi Guno Ka Ujagar Ramadut Atulit Balgrama Anjani Putra Pavan Sutanama Mahavir Vikram Bajrangi Kumati Vivar Sumati Ke Sangi Kanchan Varan Viraj Subesha Kanan Kundal Kunjit Kesha Hath Vajra aur Dhwaja Viraje Kaanhi Mooj Jane Mosaje Shankar Suvan Keshari Nandan Tej Pratap Mahajagvandan Vidyavan Puniyati Chatur
Ramaraj
Karive ko Atur Prabhu Charitra Sunive ko Rasiya Ram Lakhan Sita Bhan Basiya Sukshma Roop Dhari Siyahi Dikhawa Vigat Roop Dhari Lanka Jalawa Bhima Roop Dhari Asur Sanhare Ramachandra ke kaaj saware Laay Sanjeevan Lakhan jiyaare Shri Raghuveer Harsh Gur laaye Raghupati ki bahut badaaye Tum mah priya Bharat sab bhaaye Sahas badan tumharo jas gaave Has kahi Shripati kanth lagaave Sangadik brahmari munisa Narad Sharad Sahita Ahisa Yamabhuir Digpal Jahane Kavi Govind nahi sake kahane Tum upakar Sugriv hi कीन्हा राम मिलाय राज पल दीना तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंतकाल रघुवर पुर जाए जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाए और जीवता चेतन रहे अनुमत से सर्व सुख करे संकट कटे विधि सब तेरा जो सुमिरे हनुमत बल धीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई जो सतबार पात्र कर कोई जो तहि बंदी महासुख होई जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा होई सीधी साधी गौरीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महावीरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महावीरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महावीरा पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुरभूप सियापति रामचंद्र जी की जय शरणम पवन सुत हनुमान की जय
प्रेम से श्री जय बजरंगबली जय 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 हनुमान. And in this way, having sung the glories of Nabi Swami, we recognize his power, we recognize his intellect, we recognize his devotion to Prabhu Shri Ram, we recognize most of all his humility in all of this. It is significant that he is associated in such a meaningful way with the Lord. It is significant that in the Ramcharitmanas written by Valmiki Maharaj Ji as well as by Tulsidas Ji Maharaj, that his encounters, his activities, his very persona is one that is ripe with information and with an example for all of us to follow. When we are faced with obstacles, when we are faced with difficulties, we must always remember the example of Nabi Swami. And today, Vijay Dashami, a day that would normally be associated with the burning of the effigy of Ravan. It is very, very important this morning, and having sung Chalisa in praise of Nabi Swami, that we recollect his glories. We join now in the mantras of the Sandhya. We invite you in your homes to join with your family members as we perform the Sandhya. You will want to have with you a bottle of water and to perform the rituals, to recite verses as we go along. We join together now. Let us be safe together. Let us be reared together and united and strengthened together too. Let us not be jealous of each other. We engage now in Achman. We take water in our right palm, and as the mantra is being chanted, we take our palm close to our lips and visualize it as sipping this water.
Om Amrito Pasaranam
O God, protector and supporter as you are of the universe, be kind and bestow upon us truth, fame, beauty, and prosperity. In the same manner, we continue with Archman, sipping water from our right palm as the mantra is chanted.
Om Shanno Devi Rameshaya Apo Bhavantu Medali Shamyo Ravi Slavantu Naha.
Omnipresent God, be kind to us and grant the happiness and objects we need. Continuing now with purification, take water in our left palm. Using the third finger of our right hand, we dip into the water on each occasion, touching the various parts of the body. We start with the mouth.
Om Madhava.
Our nose.
Om Pranaha Pranaha.
Eyes.
Om Chakshuhu Chakshuhu.
Ears.
Om Srotram Srotram.
Navel.
Om Nabhi.
Heart.
Om Hridaya.
Throat.
Om Kantha.
Head.
Om Shiraha.
Both our arms.
Om Ahom Yamyashubala.
Arm and back of palm.
Om Kartala Karaknishthe.
O God, let my words, life, eyes, ears, neck, heart, throat, and head be pure and powerful, and arms strong and renowned. Let my palm and back of palm perform religious rites. Same manner, continuing Manjana, we once more take water in our left palm. Again, using the third finger of our right hand, dipping into this water, we touch the various parts of the body. We start with the head,
Om Bhupunatu Shirasi.
our eyes,
Om Bhuvaha Punatu Nibrayo.
our throat,
Om Swaha Punatu Kanthe.
heart,
Om Maha Punatu Hridaye.
our navel,
Om Janaha Punatu Nabhya.
both legs,
Om Tapaha Punatu Padayo.
again our head,
Om Satyam Punatu Punaha Shirasi.
our entire body.
Om Kham Brahma Punatu Sarvatra.
Let the region of Pu help us to purify our head. Let the region of Puha help us to purify our eyes. Let the region of Swaha help us to purify our throat. Let the region of Maha help us to purify our heart. Let the region of Janama help us to purify our navel. Let the region of Satya help us to purify our legs. Let the region of Satya again help us to purify our heads. Let Brahma help us to purify every place. We sit in an upright position now with our spine erect. We breathe in deeply, and as we exhale, we recite each of the following mantras as we engage now in pranayama.
Om Bhu. Om Bhuvaha. Om Swaha. Om Maha. Om Janaha. Om Tapaha. Om Satyam. Om Nitam Cha Satyam Cha Abhinyat Tapasu Adyajayana Tatuna Trayajayana Tataha Samudru Dhyanavad Om Samudra Dhyanavad Adhi Samvatsaru Majayana Ahuratrani Vihatara Visvisha Vishato Vashi Om Surya Chandramasadhana Yatha Purvam Manadvaya Devam Cha Prithavim Cha Antariksham Adhu Swaha.
Tendency for creation arose in the divine mind of the absolute God. Then came chaos, then came simple water, then day and night. The sun, the moon, heaven, the world, and horizon were created as were in the previous creation. We join together now. Surya Pasa.
Om Udutyam Jata Vedasam Devam Mahanti Vedavah Rishi Vishwaya
The luminous sun represents you. Everything in this universe proclaims your glory. The wise are surprised and illuminated by your supreme nature. You have given vision to the sun, the sea, the fire, the heaven, the mid-region and the earth are being sustained by you. You are the soul of the universe. We join together now in Prarthana.
Om Dakshishuridevahitam Purastashu Brahmujalan Ashima Sharinah Shatam Jivima Sharinah Shatam Sudhyama Sharinah Shatam Prabhamama Sharinah Shatam Adhina Shama Sharinah Shatam Bhuyascha Sharinah Shatam.
Omniscient God, let us see for 100 years. Let us live for 100 years. Let us hear for 100 years. Let us live for more than 100 years. We bow our head in reverence now as each of the following mantras are being chanted. We pay our obeisance or respects to Brahma, to the Rishis, to the teachers, to the Devatas, and to our Vedas.
Om Brahmani Namaha. Om Acharya-bhyo Namaha. Om Rishibhyo Namaha. Om Devibhyo Namaha. Om Vedibhyo Namaha. Om Sarvebhyo Devibhyo Namaha. Om Sarvebhyo Devibhyo Namaha. Om Sarvebhyo Devibhyo Namaha.
Salutations to Brahma, to preceptor, to sages, to gods, and to the Vedas. We join now sitting in an upright position as we chant this most powerful Gayatri Mantra, and we do so 3 times.
Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat.
Let us be in union with your luminous nature, who is the creator of the 3 worlds and the giver of our intellect. We join in Prarthana.
Om Namah Shambhavaya Cha Mayobhavaya Cha Namah Shankaraya Cha Mayaskaraya Cha Namah Shivaya Cha Shivadaraya Cha. Om Viryamasi Viryamari Devi. Om Alamasi Alamai Devi. Om Tejasi Tejomai Devi. Om Ojasi Ojomai Devi. Om Mandirasi Manyamai Devi. Om Sahasi Sahomai Devi.
Salutations to the Almighty, the giver of bliss, happiness and peace. May we be blessed with energy, strength, glory, courage, and patience. We join in the universal peace prayer.
Sarvesham Mangalam Bhuyat. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukhabhag Bhave. Nandantu Sarva Bhutani. Niramantani Santu Cha. Prithirastu Parasparam. Siddhirastu Cha Karmanam. Swasya Satyasthu Rajo Nityaha Shamprajavyastadevāstu Swasyastu Divadi Nityam Shantirastu Chatuspade Shantirastu Dodevasya Bhurabhuva Swashivam Tata Sarvata Shantirastu Na Saumya Bhavantu Bhutani Tvam Deva Janata Swasta Pada Deva Tvameva Hi Prajapalaya Devesha Shantim Kuru Jagatpade Yomi Adhyasti Hiyati Tasya Shivamastu Sada Bhuvi Yasya Bhaktisti Loke Asmin Swami Bhadrani Pashyantu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
Let there be good to all. Let all be free from sickness. Let all see good and let none suffer. Let all be happy and fearless. Let there be sympathy for each other and success for all good. Let there be prosperity to the ruler who protects the people every day and also to the people. Let the bipeds and the quadrupeds be prosperous every day. Let there be peace in gods and in the three worlds. Let us and all other beings have peace everywhere. Creator and sustainer as you are of the world, you encourageth godliness and establisheth peace amongst the people. Who is my friend today? Let him be in peace. And who is my enemy? Let him also be in peace.
Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
So, Jai Sitaram once more. Very good morning, very warm welcome to all of the devotees, all of you brothers and sisters who have taken the time to join with us once more in satsang this morning in this virtual environment that has now become commonplace. You in the confines of your homes, in the safety of your homes, and we here, the few of us at the Mandir, in a virtual setting, observing all of the recommended protocols. This has become the new normal, and for many, if not all of you, in joining with us in the preceding days and nights where we observed and celebrated that wonderful, wonderful festival of Navratri, the medium by which we engaged with you would have been through the virtual setting as well. So each and every night, which would have started last Saturday, we joined together in offering our puja to the Divine Mother, in singing her glories, in singing her Chalisa, in looking at all of the various aspects that we could have within the time, performing our Havan, and engaging most importantly in meditation. Having concluded last night, as we observed Mahanavami, and we have concluded our puja, today marks the celebration of what is known as Vijay Dashami, or Dussehra. In normal circumstance, Ram Leela would have been taking place throughout all of the parts of the country, and on Dussehra, or Vijay Dashami, it would have been traditionally the case that the effigy of Ravan would have been burnt. The coincidence of these two celebrations and these two observances is not by happenstance. Why is it that we would observe Vijay Dashami having worshipped the Divine Mother during the period of Navratri? What is so significant about worshipping and offering to her that celebration in the form of our offerings to her during this period of Dussehra? Why is it that Ravan would have been destroyed on this particular day? What is the significance of that? And what is the significance for each and every one of us? Ram Leela, as we are aware, would have been the way in which Prabhu Shri Ram would have been honored. It is in fact more than theatre, it is a puja that is performed whereby the glories of Prabhu Shri Ram is performed in a setting whereby a large segment of the public and of the congregation and so on could be aware of the Leela of Prabhu Shri Ram, could be reminded of his Leela by seeing characters actually depicting and portraying various parts of the Ramcharitmanas. It serves to bring us together as a community for a noble purpose, and that is important because very often persons can congregate and come together for purposes that are not desirable and that are not beneficial. But Ram Leela would have been one of those occasions when you could have come together for a noble purpose. And it culminates, having experienced and gone through the Leela of Prabhu Shri Ram, it culminates in the destruction and the destruction of the effigy of Ravan. That is significant. Ravan with his 10 heads represents something. It is not a literal figure that we should depict and look for persons with 10 heads, but each head of Ravan represents something. And it was noteworthy that when he was to be destroyed by the arrows of Prabhu Shri Ram, that as much as he would shoot at a particular head, that head would be replaced. And it was only when he aimed at Muladhara Chakra, the navel, that Ravan was destroyed. There is significance to that. And there is that correlation between that and what we do for Navratri. As was said in some quarters, the 9 different forms of the mother would have been worshipped. In some instances, Durga Mata Puja would have been performed. Whether she's worshipped and performed puja in the form of Durga Mata or Kali Mata, one and the same. Or whether you observe the performance of the first 3 nights to Durga Mata, the second 3 nights to Mahalakshmi, and the third 3 nights to Mahasaraswati. That in itself is rich in philosophy. But if we were to take us through all of those things, we would spend many days trying to discuss and to enlighten. In one word, the process of all of this is one of transformation. It is one of transformation. But Panji, why do I need to transform? Am I a transformer? That is not the intent. Transformation speaks about our own persona, about those battles and those negativities that are contained in each and every one of us. We have these ongoing battles between the dual forces of good and those forces that are undesirable. And as been said in some quarters, that segment or that quarter that we nourish and that we nurture and that we feed would be that aspect that would prevail. And so if we look at Ravan, for example, Ravan was a very knowledgeable person, he was a very wealthy person, he was a very powerful person. But what did he nurture and what did he feed? He nurtured his greed, he nurtured his anger, he nurtured his envy, he nurtured his pride. In other words, he nurtured those things that were undesirable. And as a result of that, eventually, it led to his destruction at the hands of Prabhu Shri Ram. And that is important for us. Similarly, if we recall the verses and the katha that is contained in Durga Saptashati, Devi Mahatmya, when you had King Surat and the merchant Samadhi, 2 individuals in different stations of life, and they encountered difficulties where their focus at all times would have been on their possessions, on their wealth, on their family only, and those relations. In the case of the King Surat, his kingdom, and by treachery and other ways, they eventually lost all of these things. And having lost it, they were put out and they were left to roam the forest, and eventually, through the goodness of Bhagwan, they ended up at the ashram of Rishi Mehas. That ashram in itself was something to take note of. Because in that ashram, which was embedded in the forest, you had animals of all characteristics that would seemingly be enemies and would attack one another, but yet in the environment of the ashram of Rishi Mehas, they lived together very peacefully. They cohabited together. There was that interdependence that took place between the animals there. And that in itself is instructional for us all, especially in these times. And having confronted the difficulties that they were faced, but yet their mind remained so attached, they spoke to Rishi Medhas and sought his advice. And Rishi Medhas then narrated what we now know as the verses, the 700 verses of Durga Saptashati. Speaking about the glories of the Divine Mother, about the illusion which she casts upon each and every one of us, and about her battle having been invoked with the various demons, Madhu and Kaitab, Chand and Mund, Dhundra Lochan, Shumbhani Shumbha, Rakta Bij, Mahishashur. And when we listen to all of these battles, we might think, oh, how grotesque, how violent, When we look at the image, for example, of Kali Mata, we think, and younger ones very often are confused how it is you can have such a portrayal and that image to represent that and look so unattractive. Brothers and sisters, we must never lose sight of the fact that the imagery and the depiction and the narration conveys certain things to us. And we must always seek the truth and understand what it contains. Those demons and asuras that were battled and that were vanquished are the same things that we experience in our lives. Think about it. Raktabij, whenever he was this hurt and a drop of his blood were to fall into the earth, what happened? Up sprung 1,000 Raktabijas in the same form with the same demeanor and power. What does that tell us? If we feed the negativity in our lives, if we feed the bad habits, then those bad habits tend to multiply 1,000 times over. And it becomes more and more difficult for us to vanquish them if we seek to do so on our own. And so we are instructed that one of the ways in which we can vanquish all of these negativities within us is through our worship to the Divine Mother. It is through performing her puja, by singing her glories and so on. Remember, the Divine Mother is that supreme one. If we focus our mind, our intellect, our actions, our thoughts, all of those things towards the purity of the Divine Mother, then how can we leave room for those negative things? And that is the beauty and that is the transformation. The puja that we perform, all of the things that we do, assists us to fortify ourselves, to strengthen ourselves, to once more invigorate ourselves so that we will have that deep connection with the Divine Mother. Almost everyone now in the world has a cell phone, whether by need or by convenience or whatever. Think of your cell phone. It is something that you pick up all of the time. It is through the use of a cell phone that we are able to come to you now in your homes and places of work maybe. We are using a cell phone to do the streaming. So it is good, it is wonderful. But what happens with constant use of that cell phone? The battery eventually dies. What can we use the cell phone for? We can use it as we're doing this morning and as we've done in the previous nights, for a good purpose. Whereby we're looking at puja, we are listening to bhajan, we're looking at all of the kirtan, we're looking at the stotra, we can use it for the wonderful purpose. For many of the students, they're using it to pursue their learning for wonderful purposes. But it can also be used for a negative purpose. And many persons are addicted to the wrong things using the cell phone. Many persons, for example, would use it for the purposes of looking at things that are not desirable, that they shouldn't be looking at, even to engage in the vilification of others through the use of social media, bullying of others through the use of social media, putting persons down. So this device, which is akin, let's say, to our body, can be used for the good or the bad purpose. So two things. What do we use this body and this mind for? Do we use it for the good and uplifting purposes, or do we not? And then if we constantly use this without plugging it back in to get that reconnection and that charge, it will eventually die. And so too ourselves. If we do not reconnect and charge ourselves through the blessings of God, which is what that connection represents, which is what Navratri gives us the opportunity to do, then inside that divinity will be subdued, and eventually that divinity will be almost extinguished. Not extinguished totally. And that is why sometimes we see persons in society. A devotee asked once recently, how can we have, when we pray and all of these things, how can we have persons committing such barbaric and atrocious acts against humanity? And we've seen it within recent times in this country through the specter of domestic violence. Heinous acts of violence being committed on our women folk. How can someone commit those acts? And it is very simple. They have allowed that divinity in them to be subdued. They have not reconnected with God. There's an absence of spirituality and good practice. There's an absence of a good example. There's an absence of satsang and of good influences. And once those things happen, then devotees, brothers and sisters, we go down a spiral for which, for some, there's no return. And in short, if we sit back and reflect, there are many persons that we would know, and we would think, how did they find themselves there? And if you were to examine what they did, you would recognize that it was the absence of spirituality that was accounting for it. And that is one of the dangers now that we must confront when we are in a lockdown setting. That many of us will find the time to do other things than to take the time and worship and offer puja to God in whatever fashion, in a deliberate and in a focused way. So yes, we can't come to the Mandir. Yes, you can't have grand yagyas, and yes, you can't have the Rab Leela. But what do we do as an alternative? Do we become indifferent and complacent and eventually allow that light of divinity in us to dim and dim and dim? Or do we try other methods that we are allowed? Do we try other methods to keep that light of divinity burning and to nurture it even stronger in this challenging time? And that is the transformation of which I speak. This Navratri period has proven to us that challenge. Do we allow our love for the Divine Mother to be diminished? Do we not do puja or offering? Or do we not observe Vrat or Alekha Mandir? So we need to do all of this. Or instead, did we reconnect in some way? Did we get up every morning, having bathed and offer our dhar? Have we performed our puja during the course of the day? Did we recite the mantras and praise of the Devi? Did our thoughts revolve around her and her glories? What did we do? And these are the questions that we must ask ourselves. And very often, if we are honest, we recognize, well, I didn't do all that I could have. Or in some very unfortunate circumstances, I didn't do anything at all. But you know what? It is never too late. It is never too late for us to start now and to nurture that light within us, that divinity within us, to nurture God's presence within us, and so that we can always be encouraged to do the proper things. That when we are faced with challenges, we do not become overwhelmed, but instead we are fortified with the blessings of God. And it is very easy for us to not do those things, and that's why it is important to constantly remind ourselves. That is why Navratri is observed 4 times a day and twice on a very grand scale, in the Chaitra month and then in Ashwin. That is the reason, to give us that positivity and that reinforcement at all points in time. So this lockdown and this pandemic has been a challenge. But what have we done in the face of that challenge? Let us ask ourselves this question. Many of us have sat back and thought in all aspects of our life, oh Bhagwan, we want a vaccine. Oh Bhagwan, let this be over. It started in December, let it be finished by March. It hit us in March, let it be finished by September. We're in October now, oh God, let it be finished by Christmas. And it goes on and on and on. And in that journey, what have we done? Have we tried to lift ourselves by ourselves, as Bhagavad Gita says? Have we done those things that will allow us to adjust and to adapt? We have tried. But it is not a race on our own. It is together we must run. Together we must come together in whatever way so that we can strengthen, uplift and assist each other. What have we done? Well, Panditji, I spent some time in the garden, I plant a garden, I learned a new hobby, I spent some time watching TV, I binge watch all of the things on Netflix I wanted to watch. Wonderful. But what have you done to nurture that spirituality? And I'm not speaking to anybody who is viewing on, because you have been doing. I'm speaking to the persons who are not viewing on. And therefore the question becomes, what do we do to assist and to encourage those persons to nurture themselves? Well, we don't have Mandir on a Sunday, so it's a good time to sleep late, especially on a morning like this where rain falls. And don't worry, you know, I'll put on the satsang in the background while I'm making lunch and so on, and that's fine. Think of what disservice you are doing to yourselves if you do not focus your mind in a deliberate way for a few moments during the day even to focus on Bhagwan. We have 24 hours in a given day. How much time do we spend focusing on this internal spirituality for the upliftment? These are some powerful questions that we must ask all ourselves. For me, coming to Mandir has given me a wonderful opportunity not to forget. It has given me a wonderful opportunity to be reminded of the glories of Bhagwan. And I thank you, the devotees, for that. because you afforded me that opportunity. So in my own way, this was a positive that was gleaned from this pandemic and from this lockdown. Through the blessings of the Divine Mother, I was able to remember her. I was able to perform her puja every night. I was able to sing her glories, and that is a blessing that I cannot thank the Divine Mother for enough. And so in our own lives, brothers and sisters, as we celebrate today Dussehra, what are the things that we can celebrate? Are we now calmer than we used to be? Are we now less angry than we used to be? Are we now less anxious and stressed out than we used to be? These are powerful questions. Because if we can answer yes, even in a little way, I'm less angry. We can't diminish anger entirely, but it will always be there. But it is up to us to constantly work at it. It is a work in progress. We can't diminish and extinguish greed entirely. It is always there. But we can keep subduing it by the seva, by the charity, by all of the things that we do, and allowing another positive quality to ascend. Have we, or are we able to celebrate that transformation? I was speaking to an individual yesterday and he said, you know what, I find myself a little more peaceful now. And I said, that is a wonderful thing. That is a wonderful feeling. He's not totally at peace, you know, but he's peaceful, a little more peaceful now. And those are the victories, brothers and sisters, that we celebrate on this occasion of Vijayadashmi. So it is up to us, it is up to each and every one of us to think about our own lives in somber mode, to introspect and reflect and think, what have I done? What am I left to do? And how am I going to get there? It is about having a vision. It is about having a mission to achieve that vision and to get to that point. And when you get to that point, don't do it alone. Remember Kewat in Ramcharitmanas. Bring everybody together to enjoy the benefit of that journey as well. Remember, the beauty of it is in the journey. Not only the accomplishment at the end, how you proceed along that journey is a most beautiful experience. So you must think along that line. So guess what? We are at the end of October. There's no vaccine. Well, maybe there's one in Russia, but we don't know about that yet. There's no vaccine. Yesterday, the whole country was waiting with bated breath for our Prime Minister to say, all the lockdown done, free up yourself. And quite rightly, our Prime Minister did not do that. Quite rightly, he did not do that. Instead, he made certain adjustments. And he appealed. And I looked at him on television and I honestly felt sorry for him. Because I thought, regardless of what this Prime Minister says today, he is going to be criticized. There's no winning in this situation. You know what is the win? The win is that you and I are alive. That's the win. Everybody who's alive today, that is a victory. Basically, don't look at it that way. Oh, I can't go and sit down in my favorite eating place and sit down and eat. I can't go to the cinema and buy popcorn. So I vex. I can't go to the river, I can only go to the beach. And I have to leave the beach by 6 o'clock, so we vex. They didn't open up the airport, so I can't fly to Miami and go shopping for Christmas. So many people would have been angry and upset by that, but did you think about the fact that you're blessed to have life? Did we think about that? Are we blessed by that? Or does that not matter until, you know what, a loved one dies from this pandemic and from this virus? And then we become appreciative. We're over 100 now of persons who've lost their loved ones. Jai Bhagwan, may Vishnu Bhagwan bless the souls of those persons. May Vishnu Bhagwan bless those persons who have been left behind because they are traumatized. They couldn't even say a proper goodbye. So our Prime Minister, and guided by the health professionals, have made certain adjustments. So for our immediate purposes, the Mandir is allowed to reopen from Monday. So our first Sunday morning service face-to-face will take place next Sunday. That is on the 1st of October. That is the immediate impact for us here at the Mandir. So Mandirs and places of worship are able to open from Monday. And our first service will be on the 1st of November, which is a Sunday. So we will be allowed to have a 1-hour service starting from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. And here are the things that we must do. We must all wear the face masks when we come to the Mandir. As he said, it's not a chin mask, it's not a neck mask, it's not a headband. It is a face mask to be worn like this. And why am I doing that? Because yesterday I had to go up north for a particular purpose. And on my journey there, plenty people on the road like normal, traffic jam like normal. And throughout various places you had clusters of men, not women, sitting together with a bottle with a particular substance. They're not in the bar, they're outside. And they're not wearing the mask on their face and down here. That is a lack of personal responsibility. And it is inexcusable. So if you know someone who is doing something like that, you need to correct them. So when you come to Mandir, we are all wearing the masks. As we've done earlier this year when the lockdown was and restrictions were eased, we have identified spaces on the benches that persons can sit, having been physically spaced. We have the sanitization stations outside and we will be doing the temperature checks as well. We will insist on proper hand sanitization and proper protocols, and we will insist on maintaining our number to the allowable limit, which is 50% of our normal number. And we are going to insist on those things. Because we must set the example of acting responsibly. I saw recently advertised in the newspaper a group that performed Ram Leela virtually. And the picture was in the newspaper. And I was so happy about that. You know, look, they adjusted. What I was not happy about was the fact that the entire cast came together. More than 10 persons coming together without masks on. So that I found unfortunate, because that's not setting the right example. So these are the acts of personal responsibility that we must all now adopt as the new normal, because guess what? This is not going away for the next couple years in the very least. And one of the challenges for us now is how do we get victory over that by the way in which we adjust and transform ourselves and our behavior patterns. You know, one of the greatest fears, and I will end with this, of the Prime Minister. He said in my opening, if I were to open bars and restaurants, I'm afraid that people will go and take a few drinks. And once they take a couple of drinks, that's it. All sense of responsibility going down the road. So my thought was, you know what, Prime Minister? Let's ban alcohol completely and the business space. Strongly, I would advocate that. I always advocate that. I absolutely despise its consumption because there's no benefit. There's only harm, no good. But that's just me. So that's what it is. And I live in a part of Laramie where I traverse the southern main road around Bamboo, and without fail, you have men, women, and young people gathered there drinking. And they all in the roadway, even with restrictions, without masks. And I asked myself, oh my God, my policemen will come and lock up everybody here. Because there's a sense of irresponsibility, and that irresponsibility has forced our seniors into hiding. It has forced our school system to remain shut. It has forced many businessmen to lose their job, their businesses, and the workers to lose their jobs because of irresponsibility. Think about it. If everyone were to assume a sense of responsibility, then we would be in a better place. And that is our urging now, to act responsibly, all of us, without exception. So are we going to do that? So enough of the lecture. What I wanted to do simply was to remind you that next next week Sunday we are reopening. We will sanitize the mandir completely before that occurs. And most importantly, we will be maintaining strictly the protocols. And I make no apologies for saying this. If persons don't adhere to the protocols, then we will have to make alternative arrangements. The health and well-being and safety of every person is important. Every life matters. Bluntly and plainly. So Bhagwan bless you as we celebrate Vijayadashami. I'm glad that we could all join together. Forgive me if I have hurt the feelings of anyone by my statements, especially surrounding COVID. I humbly apologize. These are my private views and not that of the mandir. And so I urge persons to act responsibly. We now conclude through blessings of God through the medium of Arti and closing prayer. Prem se bole Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki jai, Aaj Shakti Durga Mata ki jai. Arti bhajan.
Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Swami Jai Jagadish Hari, Bhakt Jano ke sankat, Nas Jano ke sankat, Janani Dur Kari. Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Jodhya Vedhan Pari, Mukha se Mandana, Swami Mukha se Mandana, Sukha Sampati Dhari Avi, Sukha Sampati Dhari Avi, Saraswati Vedana. Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Sadhu Mani, Sharan Jaho Kisati, Swami Sharan Jaho Kisati, Tumari Nara Dura, Tumari Nara Dura, Aaj Jaho Kisati. Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Tumha Puran Paramatma, Tuman Karyami, Swami Tuman Karyami, Parabrahma Parameshwar, Parabrahma Parameshwar, Tuva Sarvati Swami. Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Om Jai Jagadish Hari, Om Jai
Hari Om. We join our prayer hands together as we engage in our closing mantras, giving thanks to God for all the blessings that we've been bestowed with, asking for the blessings of continued inspiration and fortitude and courage to overcome all difficulty, all sickness, all anxiety. O Prabhu, you are mother, you are father, you are family, you are friend, you are knowledge, you are birth. We surrender ourselves completely to you. May you always be with us. May we always be reminded of your presence within and around us. We pray to you. Hari Om. Twameva Mata Shri सर्वविदं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देवा ॐ शान्ति 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 हरि ओम। प्रेम से श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय, आज शक्ति नव दुर्गा मैया की जय, श्री पुत्र हनुमान की जय, प्रेम से श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय। सबको जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम। May the blessings of Bhagavan be with each and every one of us. May we continue to enjoy His grace. We look forward to seeing you all with us, those of you who are able to, in a face-to-face setting next Sunday. That will be the 1st of November, again following the protocols from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. And for those of you who are unable to come physically, and we do understand that, please continue to join with us in this virtual setting as we continue to stream our satsangs and our services from the Krishna Mandir. Sabko Jai Sitaram.